biggest story in the land today. It's perhaps something that is affecting the money's in your pocket. And you've heard the conversation last week, or no, it was on Sunday, isn't it? That Dangote came out and said, give some information as to how he's going to sell the products coming from his refinery, whether or not people can start lifting. He gave some information. And there's been back and forth. The politics of crude refinery in Nigeria is one of the biggest politics, perhaps more than political party or election politics today in Nigeria. The private sector and the government, all of what we're talking about affects the bottom line. The money's in your pocket. How does it affect you? Let me give you a hint. So when the government removed subsidy on fuel, it meant one thing, that you were buying, or Nigerians started buying almost 8 times more than what we used to buy petrol. That's, for example, kerosene, as those who are buying AGO, as the price or the prices of these products change in any ways. Now, the problem has been we have abundance of crude under the ground. But since the early 60s, when Nigeria had its first refinery, we added 3 more. But Harcourt Refinery has 2 units, the old plant and the new plant, 1965 and 1985. We added the Warri Refinery, we added the Kaduna Refinery. Altogether, the Port Harcourt Refinery was supposed to give us about over 200,000 barrels per day refining capacity. But guess what? Unfortunate thing happened to Nigeria. Some people have amounted how much has been spent over a period of time to over 1 trillion naira spent on refineries that gave 0 product, because we shut down our refineries locally. The 4 of them were not working. We now depended on bringing crude oil that is under the ground. We transport them into a ship, take them abroad, refine them, and bring them back. And Nigeria, as a government, is paying for the differentials of that transportation. But the president has said, no more. We're not paying for those subsidies. That is why you could buy fuel at the price you were buying it, 65, 95, whatever rate you were buying it, until the president said, subsidy is gone. It meant that you were buying it almost about 1,000 naira, or wherever you may be in the country, at the different prices. So now that we have the Dangote Refinery in Lagos, Port Harcourt Refinery that has come on stream today in Port Harcourt, it means that little or less of the product are going to be refined abroad. Will that affect the price of the product as you are buying it today? It means one thing, the price of commodities also will be impacted. Well, let's distill all of this and give you a sense of what this means. Is it good news for Nigeria? For those who are saying that, look, the NNPCL is not telling us a whole lot of things that is happening. Those inside sources are also revealing a few things about the refinery, which we need to ask and NNPCL needs to come clean about. Well, all of this is going to be unraveled in our conversation tonight. Joining me tonight, a man that's been in the oil and gas sector for years, as a co-founder and a former executive director of Sahara Energy Group, Nigeria billionaire, Torieko. Thank you so much indeed for joining us. I appreciate it.
Nice to be here again.
Thank you so much indeed. I know that you are, you've been in the process of, at one point, probably get a product from any of Nigerian refineries, but at some point that changed. Your operational and your logistical strategies had to change because we now needed to rely on foreign refining. But for you, interestingly, you're also from Port Harcourt. Elena is a home where a lot of drumming and singing will commence because activity has now resumed in that part of your state. How much of a good news is this for Nigeria?
I think let me start from Rivers State, first of all. I think it's extremely good news for Rivers State. The Port Harcourt Refinery used to be a central hub. And once it was working, you had trucks that came there, you had businesses that were there, even from the Mami market, people who will sell water and all of that. So any kind of business activity, first of all, around an industrial estate is good news. So that's one good thing. Then you move to Nigeria. I would say, first of all, psychologically, just listening to what you said over the years, I think it has been one of the biggest shames that we have, that you are an oil-producing country at the level of Nigeria, and you could not say that you had refineries that were working.
Well, one of the largest, no, one of the top 7.
Top 7. Top 7. So you cannot,
in the world.
In the world. So you cannot say you are that big and then you don't have working refineries. When people ask you, say, oh, you have refineries 4, but none of them are operational. I think it was a big shame to Nigeria. So one of the things that we needed to do was remove that shame from our face. Dangote Refinery came in as a private sector doing that, but that's good. But then it did not stop the question that what is happening to your own refineries. So the fact that it's up and running, I think that's kudos to Nigeria, that something has happened after a long time. It's good news.
I have a feeling that it is the old one that has been reactivated from what I gathered. I mean, there are the 2 plants in Port Harcourt on that ground. The old plant, which has 60,000 barrel per day refining capacity, and on the other hand, you look at the products that Port Harcourt refinery can boast of, about almost 7 or 6 products that it can refine. But in the real sense of it, today we saw trucks lining and queuing up. And I imagine that you have been on that grounds before. Give us a sense of how important to the value chain, this refinery coming on stream.
I think Port Harcourt Refinery, of all the refineries that we had, it's a basic refinery in itself, but it's one of the ones that could break down crude up to a level that meant that you had diesel, you had jet fuel, you had naphtha coming out of it, you had AG and all of that. So it produces what we need for Nigeria, first and foremost. Now, with every kind of industry, bringing it on stream means that you bring it on stream bit by bit. So it's possible that what you are seeing now is the first or second level that has come upstream. The important thing now, the important thing is that it has started to deliver products into the market. And that must continue. It can't stop.
I don't know. The NNPCL needs to also let Nigerians know, because there are inside sources saying that it is quite not fully ready, that it's some kind of rush to work. And perhaps it's not yet Uhuru, but and some of the stories that we are hearing from inside sources, because one thing about our job is also that what you hear government or what you hear people say on the surface, you will also need to dig deeper and find out the deeper meaning to what is being told, other than what is really happening on the ground. But if you hear what the president said today, he said to them, look, let the other part of the Port Harcourt refinery, let it come almost immediately. Let Kaduna come. And one thing he did was to give kudos to the Buhari government. They were the ones who announced that they were going to rehabilitate for $1.5 billion. And now, whatever that we are seeing today, it was the dream of the Buhari government, which has now happened. Many governments have tried to make sure that all these refineries work to capacity, but unfortunately, 5 years ago, all were shut down.
Okay, so Sean, one of the things that we have suffered as a nation is trust. We don't trust anybody. And so even when people say it's working, they want to go there, take a look at it, touch it, see it coming out. They don't want to just believe by word of mouth. And I think we need to take a step back and think about where you're coming from over the last 5 years, from a zero production to something that is now working. We have to see what's going to happen in the next 1 month, next 6 months, next 1 year. The one thing that the president is going to be doing right now is that he's going to be on NNPC's case to ensure that all the refineries come on stream. It's very important. And I think Nigerians want to see that. But are Nigerians going to believe, because you say it is up and running, that it is up and running? No, they would not. So in Nigeria, seeing is believing.
Yeah. So what significance do you think this could have? Because it is the smaller capacity refinery that we understand on the one that has a 60,000 capacity that has come on stream with our need added to what Dangote is giving us, that those experts say is insufficient.
No, but hang on. If they came out to you and said that the only thing they were repairing and the only thing that was coming on stream is 60,000 barrels, then we can have this argument. But nobody has said so. Again, what is being looked at is that the entire refinery is going to come fully on stream, as well as Warri, as well as Kaduna. It's a process that is ongoing from 0 to 60, from 60 to 210. So I think we need to be patient in this particular case.
Yeah, and excitedly, for those of us who have followed the process over the years, and I remember that I've had interviews. In fact, I remember that the former Minister of Petroleum under the Buhari government broke the news and told me in an exclusive interview the details of the refinery, the deals, and what it meant for Nigeria, how much stake Nigeria had, what the privatization or the arrangement in rehabilitating it is all about. But the question is that because a few people that I was talking to, those who are present worker and that have been there for years, they talks about the fact that that refinery as it presently is, and I do hope that maybe tomorrow we get to speak with someone from the NNPCL, that at the moment that we may not have had what it takes to refine petrol out of that refinery, that in fact, and I'm hoping that the NNPCL might be able to come and, debunk or speak to these issues, that we're getting some of what they call the C5 crack from Indorama and blended with naphtha to sell to the public. That is what is being said. We need to have the details of what exactly is going on and what the capacity is so that we can manage the expectations of Nigerians. Because in the real sense of it, the product that are said to have conveniently been able to refine is not petrol actually, which is the larger product that we need in this country. But if you look at the bigger value chain in management, because one of the major problems that we've had over the years is that people are working in the refineries, they are being paid, no single product has come out of it. We do turnaround maintenance that's gone into billions of naira and nothing comes out of it. So my sense is that how do we guarantee that we do not go back to the old days?
Okay, so Sharon, let's start from where we are today. What you're seeing today is that activity has begun where activity did not exist before. Everything you said about being paid, people, the overheads that were carried by the country when zero production was going on, hopefully our prayer is that that has to end. And from this point on, you're going to see products going in. You're calling somebody, hopefully from NNPC, to shed light as to what the breakdown is, as to how the ramping is going to come up. And that's fine. What I can assure you is that as long as that process is on, then we are moving in the right direction. So one of the things that we're seeing now is that you have begun to move in the direction that a refinery has started to produce. That is the right direction. And what we should be pressing now is let us make sure that we don't go back to the place where you're having zero production. Why is this important? On the one hand, you have Dangote Refinery that is a private refinery doing what it needs to do. It's out there doing that. You need to balance it with competition. Competition is critical. And so for the government and what they are doing, let them create the base whereby these refineries begin to work and work properly and create a balance, because that's the only way that prices can start to come down. It's very important. Now, it doesn't matter if this refinery stay with government or whether the government privatizes it down the line. That's not the issue. The main issue is that Nigeria must have, and I repeat, must have more than one refinery operating in this climate. Critical.
How do we guarantee the refinery? Because now the competition, the big question, when Dangote says, I'm going to sell at this particular price, and those who are saying, so where, since we are not taking crude abroad, and the refinery is there, you are getting the crude right from Nigeria, the shores of Nigeria, and a lot of Nigerians might not understand why Dangote is dispensing or selling at the rate and the price at which he is selling. What sense? I mean, break it down for us.
Okay.
Why we are not able to see the differentials of the foreign or the transportation chain?
I think you've seen it. You've seen a bit of it. So in the last 4 months, practically, Nigeria has hardly imported any product at all. So since Dangote Refinery started, what you saw is that there had to be a price that made sure that importation cannot come in. So Nigeria's price that we are selling today, the PMS that we are selling today, is at the price that is lower than what an imported cargo will land at. As a result of that, most people have not bothered to import. So Nigeria is already benefiting from that. That's number one. Number two, the volume of consumption in Nigeria has gone down a lot. So as a result of that, the pressure that you used to have on foreign exchange has gone down because now you're not importing as much. What you are selling is in Naira. The Naira is what's used to buy crude. So we're already seeing the impact of that. As high as it is, we've seen a balance. So there's been a rebalance of foreign exchange and Naira and crude.
But the average person is not feeling it
Not yet, but you'll get there. That's why you need more refineries to come.
So you think that the price, Dangote might be forced to drop his price?
See, there's competition. I don't know about force. You see, there's
the market forces.
Thank you. Market forces, yes.
Yeah. So in that sense, if, take for example, if the NNPCL, the PH refinery is effectively trucking out and getting products to the market, and with what we're seeing, except for the transportation from Lagos to the further north,
correct,
which you, of course, you will see the differentials, maybe 10, 20 naira or 30 naira difference from what you sell in Ibadan, Lagos, or Ogun State. The question here is that those who think that if you're selling about over 900 naira and you're not taken outside of the country to refine, refining here, shouldn't we be getting the product at about 700 naira?
No, I don't think it will.
Because that is how it will affect the average person.
Eventually. So there are certain things that you have to deal with. First of all, there are many components that you are still bringing in. All the things that were refurbished in the refinery were refurbished by machinery that was brought into the country. So we still have a huge foreign exchange component that we have to deal with refineries. Down the line, as we move forward, there has to be machining of tools and replacement parts here in Nigeria for refineries that are here, for you to begin to see all of those differentials. As long as we're still importing turbines, importing bolts, importing nuts, screws, and all of that, you have an issue. So what you are first seeing is the differential that comes from the selling and buying of crude in Naira. That's what you're first seeing. But then there has to be a very concise and dedicated policy of ensuring that there's manufacturing of critical components so that you don't have to import those things. That's down the line. What's your steel market going to do? Those who will create parts and replacement parts for very high consumables, what's going to happen to them? We must domesticate those things. We must.
Let's take a pause, everyone. When we go on a break, and when we return, my conversation with Mr. Tony Cole continues. But yeah, there are some critical aspects of this conversation that we need to take a look at. At what cost is the refinery being refurbished? Who is paying for it? How does this impact on the average person? Is it adding to the debt of Nigeria? These are fundamentals and questions that need to be answered, isn't it? That's when we return from this break, everyone. Join us again. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. The Harcourt Refinery, and it's coming on stream today, as announced by the NNPCL, gets our attention. Tonight, we've seen quite a number of heavyweights in the oil and gas sector, including the Minister of State for Petroleum, Heineken Lokobri, and the group managing the MD CEO of the NNPCL, Mela Kyari, on the ground. The other thing that got our eyes are the trucks which incidentally, that means that they must have been planning this for some days, because for the announcement of the reactivation to happen today, and the trucks to have gotten themselves into the facility after almost over 5 years of any of such activity happening, and that facility means that the NNPCL must have been planning for a day as this. How they chose Tuesday, a day as this, to do that is still left to be seen. But the good news on the, especially for a country that has seeing millions of dollars and billions of naira spent on turnaround maintenance. We've had turnaround maintenance even during the military days through the Obasanjo, Yaradua, and Jonathan era, and 4 refineries not producing anything for years. But now, President Bola Tinubu says it was the vision and the audacity of the Buhari government, although a lot of people had criticized $1.5 billion to rehabilitate the Port Harcourt refinery at a point where Nigeria had some fiscal problems. But then, the implications for the average Nigerian, that is the question on the table right now. If the Port Harcourt refinery altogether, the old and new plant, the one that was as old as 1965 and the one which came live in 1985, if both of them come on stream, we'll be seeing a joint capacity of over 200,000 barrels per day added to what Dangote is giving, with almost over $500 million and about over $800 million to rehabilitate Warri and Kaduna refinery. If everything happens within the next few years, the story is going to change for Nigeria. But one person that is much in the know is Tony Cole, who is a co-founder and the former executive director of Sahara Energy Group. Thanks so much indeed for your time tonight. So we're looking at the arrangement between the Nigerian government, because we do know at the time when I spoke with the former Minister of State for Petroleum, he said, look, this money came largely from the private sector, the borrowings and the arrangement that this is not going to be run also by government, but those who invested in it are also having, they need to cater for the money they spend. The question is that Nigeria put its money there, borrowed or loaned or whatever be the case. The question is that to what advantage, especially at a period as this, to what advantage is it for the average Nigerian citizen?
Okay, so I think we need to look at this holistically. The first aspect of it is Nigerian taxpayers' money went in as well as some private sector funding that has come in to rehabilitate it. What does this mean? The first aspect of it is that you can be certain that the pressure to ensure that it functions is good. Every taxpayer wants results. And what they want to see at the end of the day is that if my money has gone in there as a taxpayer, that I will get direct benefit from what I have spent. The first direct benefit is that that refinery must produce diesel, petrol, kerosene. It must. Are we on track to get that happening? Absolutely. That's on track. So I'm happy with that. But then there's something that you mentioned which we have to pay attention to. And this is another indirect benefit that Nigeria will get if the planning is done properly. Let's assume that all Nigeria's refineries come on track. Kaduna, Warri, Port Harcourt, and Dangote, you will be consuming over 1 million barrels of crude per day. Nigeria's production today, pushing, if we can get to 2 million barrels, that would be great. We are somewhere between 1.5, 1.6 million barrels per day. In other words, we are paying in Naira half of what Nigeria used to get in dollars. So now our earning capacity from crude has gone down by 50%, which means that we have to look for alternative means for earning foreign exchange so that we can increase our reserves. We cannot depend on oil for that. Is this good news for Nigeria? Personally, I believe it's the best thing that can happen to us, we have to diversify this economy, which we have been trying to do over the last couple of years. So all of this inadvertently is beneficial to the Nigerian taxpayer and to Nigeria as a country.
So the question is accountability.
Mm-hmm.
NNPCL is holding the destiny of this country in trust over these issues. And all these refineries are in the custody of the NNPCL.
Yes.
Now this has come to life now. The question that NAITI and some other organization has raised over NNPCL and the manner in which the Mele Kyari leadership have run that company, there seems to be more answers demanded by the Nigerian public than is being given. Their books, what is in it for Nigeria, now that we have been told that, well, this is a public partially owned by government and the Nigerian public. But the question is that accountability is very key. On one hand, on the other hand is the fact that this refinery, maintenance has been a very terrible culture that has affected and impacted on whether or not this refinery is worked. What is the way forward?
The government has probably three options. The first option is to hold on to it, as it has been doing, and run it where Nigerians don't believe, don't trust, and transparency is an issue, which you have pointed out. The second option is to list it as a public company on the stock exchange, release equity from that entity, put it on the stock exchange, and let Nigerians own it. Allow Nigerians to own a percentage of it. Nobody can hide that one. They have to show their books to stay on the stock exchange. You have to declare what you have. People have to see your transparency. If not, you sink. That's the second option. The third option is to privatize completely. Now, whichever option the government takes must be an option that enlists absolute trust in the first hand that the books will be seen, but secondly, that the interest of the public is protected. Under normal circumstances, the interest of the public is usually protected by the government. But where there is an element that the public does not trust the government, then you have to find a middle ground. And I suspect that for this case, the government must find a middle ground, somewhere between the government owning it and the public becoming stakeholders and proper stakeholders. I would advocate that at this level, take a percentage of it, put it on the stock exchange, float it, let Nigerians own it, generally, so that they can have access to the books.
There are those who say in this kind of things, government has failed over the years to be able to manage what the private sector would have naturally excelled in. And perhaps some of the monies that have been spent on turnaround maintenance over the years, we need not have. And it was difficult because the minister at the time explained to me, he said, each time we want to lay people off labor, will come and say, you cannot. Yet we are not producing, we have to keep. We do not have money. In fact, there was a time that Nigeria, there were those who were muting the idea of us selling some major national assets so that we can get money and put in some infrastructure projects, and when the nation needed money. The issue of the refinery came on, whether or not Nigeria should sell those assets. And it was a very big debate. Is it not commonsensical for us to now come to the table and start thinking? Because the biggest fear is that we spend this much money, and that those who are thinking that a lot is still not well. Yes, good news.
Good news.
But then it's going to be questions. Some questions are being raised. How critical is it for government to now come to realization? Because the Jakarta Steel Company is there for years and years of spending money, and nothing really is coming out of it. Have we not learned our lesson that government is not good in these kind of businesses?
So the government will argue on the one hand and say that for the interest of the public, right, they have to spend this money. Because if you do the math, how much they spend versus how much they are going to recover in terms of naira and kobo, it doesn't add up. You spend so much, but what you're going to earn back in terms of profit loss, you're in the negative. So it was not an economic decision to make it work, but it's a perception decision, and it's a decision that the Nigerian public just cannot make sense of. That how can you have refineries that are not working? So we've crossed that first hurdle. spent a lot of money to get there, but we've crossed the hurdle. Now we get into the trust and accountability matrix of the game. You brought it up. Now, can I trust you that you're not going to run it down? Can I trust you that the next administration is going to continue the policy? Can I trust you that you are not going to use it as a patronage game, right? Where your friends can come and be collecting products without paying and deals and all of that. That's the next question that will come up. The government has to answer that question, and the best way to answer that question is transparency. You have to create a transparent look. After that, you get to the point of, do I have any business running this? Should I just leave it for the private sector to go out and run it, and will it be beneficial at the whole? I think that's the end game. If you ask me, that's where it's going to get to. Should it have gotten there a while ago, a long time ago, Sean? We have no business being here. I remember Obasanjo's government trying to privatize all the refineries back then. And I believe if he had done it, or I don't know whether if he was allowed to do it, but anyway, if it was done and completed at that time, we would not be where we are today, for sure.
Now, you said something that was very critical, the fact that already the government is advocating alternative to fossil fuel and alternative to what we are used to, and the introduction of things like CNG and powered vehicles. So the question is that at some point, we still need to start thinking about a new economy other than oil. We became so lazy in the early mid-60s. As soon as oil came, it does look like our biggest problem. And now we are, those who are before your generation were the ones that your generation caught into it. Some of my generation also are caught in it. And the generation behind are going to suffer for it because of the laziness of 3, 4, 5 decades ago. And now the generations yet unborn will also be impacted on it. For this government, the president said he's taking some very difficult decision. If you are to advise him tonight, for someone who has played in that sector for several years, what do you think he should be doing immediately?
Okay. I'll say first and foremost, create an environment around the oil and gas sector that allows it to operate autonomously on its own. Just regulate and move on. It's old enough, mature enough to know what it's doing. We don't need to babysit the oil and gas industry anymore. So the government can easily let that aspect go and make money out of it. Where do you need to look at today and put efforts in? Digital economy. It's a huge economy that the government should look in and can generate foreign exchange even from here. The blue economy, the entire marine economy, we have a huge opportunity there, not being tapped properly, but it's there and available. Agriculture continues to be something that can wipe away a lot of tears in Nigeria if done properly. Even if we focus, then of course, mining, extractive industry outside of oil and gas, organize that sector. If the president decided that, you know what, I'm not interested in anything else, let me just take these 4 areas, you would see progress. Now, if you wanted to add another one that now connects to the people, then I would say deal with the entertainment industry, that entire industry that focuses on the youth, so sports and entertainment. Deal with that. It connects with almost 70% of our population at that base. So, with those 5 today, if the president decides that this is what I want to do, I have another 2.5 years, let me focus on creating that enabling environment that people will start seeing an impact in. If oil and gas is mature enough, allow it to progress. Focus on these things. That's what
and at least create minimum of 2 to 3 new economies.
You will create it.
I'm saying it should create it.
It should, definitely.
Which do you think is the low-hanging fruit now that can bear fruit almost immediately?
Digital economy will bear fruit immediately because the youth are already doing it, whether government is there or not. So that's already bearing.
So the unicorns are examples.
They're doing it already. They just turn their ears away from government, turn their eyes away from government and focus on it. So that's a low-hanging fruit. You can pump it and it will explode. That's one. Your agricultural sector has been there forever. Again, it's there. The blue economy, again, is there. So low-hanging fruit, I'll say digital economy, hit it, drive it, see it grow.
I mean, we have seen the oil and gas sector. We are like a spoiled brat that saw a cake, a big cake on its birthday, and sat in front of it and became obese and almost died of eating that cake. That's what we looked like as a country. We almost got drowned in the oil wealth, and those who in the early 80s and thereabout, the world oil boom has become oil doom, because yes, the money was coming, but there is no value for it in the real sense. Everything, most of it going into, and we didn't know what to do with it. The question here is that if you look at what President Tinubu said, and those who are already praising him, that yes, this was not fundamentally your own idea, was something that you inherited. What do you think of that kind of political move of giving credit to Muhammadu Buhari administration?
First of all, I think that makes sense. Government is a continuum. One of the biggest challenges that we've had in Nigeria, and I've been a victim of it in Rivers State, is government policy somersault. One government starts something, another government comes in and says that because I don't like this government before, or that policy is not my policy that I initiated, you stop it, and another one starts it. And I think such things must stop. So where we see that one government, if I remember right, the Jonathan government started the whole issue of, was it railways? The Buhari government came in and continued that. So as a result of that, we started to see trains that we had not seen for, I don't know, since we were born. Suddenly, we started seeing it. But Harcourt Refinery rehabilitation had been on for a long time. There are children who were born who never saw the refinery working. Suddenly, Buhari started it. This government comes in and says that we'll finish it. And it must be that way. Because there are things that this government is going to start that they are not going to be able to finish. The next government must come in and take it and move it on. If we can create a culture of continuity in government and not personal freedom, and let me kill this one for the sake of my own legacy, I think we're moving in the right direction.
Again, what bothers me is the fact that the exchange rate. The exchange rate, very critical. And because our economy is too dependent on an economy we cannot control. And unfortunately, the dollar is almost like a constant. That value is almost like a constant. It is our own currency that keeps going up and down like a yo-yo. Now the question is, how do you deal with that? And you said, look, yes, it looks like good news that we're not paying for crude in dollars, but then again, it means that your earnings in terms of dollar also will reduce.
That's correct.
The big question is, how do we drag down? Because the MPC came out and went for another increase today. The CBN made an announcement today.
I saw that. So there are various segments and there are various portions. But the oil part we've talked about. But let's look at the other part very, very quickly. Can you increase foreign earnings in Nigeria through technology? Absolutely. The Nigerians don't even have to leave Nigeria to bring foreign exchange in here. You can operate here and bring it in. So that's one area to bring foreign exchange coming into Nigeria. Can you export food produce, crop from Nigeria abroad easily? Because we have not put controls in place for exportation, guess where they export from? Ghana. And we're talking about agriculture belts, that what grows in Nigeria will grow in Ghana. But because Ghana has put some focus on how to export yams, cashew, and ginger and things like that. They're taking the export. Nigeria can do that easily. So these are some foreign exchange things that we need to look at in country to say, how can we bring foreign exchange into Nigeria?
I mean, you are in the private sector and you hear the frustration.
A very lot.
Yeah, and I don't still think that the political blood is still flowing well in you. You don't. I mean, you spend more years as a private sector person. You hear the frustration of entrepreneurs, of business people, how the last 1 year have been so terrible for them in terms of what this economy has shown them. Some of them call it shaggy. How bad are things from your own perspective?
You know, somebody said to me very recently, a man who has been in Nigeria for a very long time, elderly man and a great entrepreneur, somebody I respect. And I was asking him, I said, one entrepreneur to another, one businessman to another, I'm in politics, and I'd like to know, would you bet on Nigeria? And he said, any day, any time. And it's my belief as well. Nigeria somehow has always been a good bet. As crazy as everything might seem, it's not a place that you should bet against. I have never betted against this country, and it has benefited me because I don't bet against it. So when people think what you see is ups and downs, and you may be in a down now, but don't bet against it. What you need to do is just focus how you change, and the dynamics are changing. So Nigerian dynamics are changing currently now. The fuel is changing the dynamics a bit. The economic situation is changing dynamics again. Figure out how to bet and how to bet.
Someone, a guest of mine who sat there said, yeah, if Peter Obi had become president, things would have been better.
I don't know.
Can Nigeria trust Bola Tinubu? You are in the same political party.
The truth of the matter is that nobody can tell what the future will be. All we can do is deal with what we see now.
Are we in for a good deal right now?
I think we have a tough deal, but it's not a bad deal.
All right. Thank you so much indeed. Tonya Cole, Nigerian business billionaire and former co-founder and a former chief executive director of Sahara Energy Group. Thanks so much indeed for your time. I appreciate it.
God bless you, Sean.